Jesus says in the Gospel of John that he is the way, the truth, and the life. Later on in the same gospel, in chapter 18, Jesus is on trial before Pontius Pilate. And Pilate asks Jesus the question that so many are inclined to ask today. Jesus says, "Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." Pilate responds by asking, "What is truth?" It's a timely question. What is truth? There are really three different kinds of truth. There's objective truth. Objective truth is sort of like what goes up must come down. That's objective truth. It's true no matter who believes it, no matter what your opinions are of it. It's objectively true that what goes up must come down. But there's also subjective truths as well. A subjective truth is like my favorite kind of ice cream, okay? It's true for me that I like a certain ice cream, but it might not be true for anyone else. So it's only subjectively true. It's true for me as the subject. And then there's also situational truths. Situational truths. A situational truth is a truth that might be true in one circumstance, in one situation, but it's not true in every situation. So take a truth like you should always drive on the right-hand side of the road. That's only situationally true. It's not always true. It's not objectively true or even subjectively true. It's only true in a certain situation. So when a Christian says, Jesus is Lord, which is the principal declaration of a Christian, the principal confession of a Christian is that Jesus is Lord. What kind of truth claim is this when we say that Jesus is Lord? Is it objective? Is it subjective? Or is it merely situational? Many people assume that saying Jesus is Lord is either subjective, it's just your personal opinion, it's just your personal feeling, or it's situational. It's only true because you are in this circumstance. You're just in this, you're maybe raised by a Christian family or raised in a Christian culture. So you only really believe Jesus is Lord for situational reasons. So many people have turned Jesus is Lord into one of these two truth claims. I like to compare it to turning Jesus, this is going to sound funny when I first say it, turning Jesus into a smoker, okay? Now think about being a smoker in our culture, in our society today, okay? It's perfectly legal to smoke cigarettes, okay? As long as you're of a certain age, it's legal to smoke cigarettes. However, you can only smoke cigarettes in designated areas, right? You can't smoke cigarettes anywhere you want. You have to be in the designated smoking area. A lot of people have turned Jesus into this same type of truth. So yes, Jesus is true for you. Maybe Jesus is true in your family. But just, don't bring that to school. Don't bring that to work. Just keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. Jesus is fine as long as Jesus is in his designated area. So we've made belief in Jesus as both a private affair. It's something that ought not be shared publicly. And we've also turned belief in Jesus into a relativistic affair. What I mean by relativistic is it's true for you, but it's not necessarily true for everyone. So just keep that in mind. And so by turning Jesus as Lord into a subjective or a situational truth, we've basically isolated belief in Jesus. We've marginalized belief in Jesus. And a lot of this comes from, I'm going to draw a house now, okay? A lot of this comes from the way that people have come to understand the nature of reality or the nature of truth in general. Our understanding of the world is sort of a two-story understanding of the world. So we have a top story and we have a bottom story. The bottom story down here, this is the world of truth and facts. This is where truth lives on the bottom story. The upper story, this is the world of opinions, values. This is the top story. And so we've separated reality into a top story and a bottom story. And so up here, this is where religion lives. Religion is in the same place that my favorite flavor of ice cream lives, okay? It's just in the upper story. It's just up in this area of opinion. It's certainly not like science. It's not like math. It doesn't occupy the world of truth. It occupies the world of opinion. And a lot of people are resistant to the gospel because they assume that saying that Jesus is Lord is just someone else's opinion. And when it comes to your opinion, I'm free to either accept it or reject it. It has no bearing necessarily on my life. Now, one of the ways that this is often expressed is by turning the claims of Christianity, or really the claims of any faith, into relativistic claims. Sometimes, I'm going to draw another illustration here. Sometimes, this is my mountain, okay? Sometimes belief in God is compared to going up the side of a mountain. So God is up here at the top of the mountain. And the argument is that all religions are really just trying ultimately to get to the same place, okay? So it doesn't matter what you believe. You could believe that Jesus is Lord. You could be a Muslim. You could be a Hindu. You could be an irreligious person who just follows kind of your own spirituality. And none of that really matters because they're all just different paths up the same mountain. We're all trying ultimately to get to the same place. All roads lead to God. Now I have two problems with this. The first problem that I have with this is that it strips all religion of their distinct truth claims, essentially rendering all religion as meaningless, because there's nothing that makes them distinct. There's nothing that makes them unique. There's nothing that makes them in any way sort of objectively true. And so they're all just rendered meaningless because the differences don't matter. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim, Christian, and none of that matters. And so in doing that, you render all religion meaningless, and you turn religion into a completely private affair. You privatize faith so that every person has their own distinct and very, very private understanding of religion and of God. But the second problem that I have with this, and I think in many respects this is the bigger problem, is that it assumes that God is a place. Now, if God were a place, this would make some level of sense, right? Because if you think right now, if I want to get from point A to point B on the map, okay? So I'm in Joplin, Missouri right now. Say I wanted to get to Chicago. There are all sorts of different ways that I could get there. All sorts of different paths. Some would be faster than others. Some would be more efficient than others. Some would be more reasonable perhaps than others. But there are endless ways for me to get from Joplin, Missouri to Chicago, Illinois. And so maybe the same is true about God. There are endless different ways of getting to God. The problem is you're assuming, though, that God is a place. But God is not a place. God is a person. And that changes our understanding significantly. So I think of my wife. I've been married and committed to my wife for nearly 20 years. It would be awful and horrible for me to say it is appropriate and acceptable for me to love my wife by loving other women. That's not how relationships work, okay? I can't love my wife by loving other women because she's a person. She's a person that I'm committed to. And in the same way, God is a person. God's not just some abstract place that we're going. God is a person, which means that there are appropriate ways to follow and to love God. There are appropriate things to believe about God. And there are also inappropriate ways to follow God and inappropriate, wrong things to believe about God. And so to say that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, in an objective sort of sense, this is a stumbling block for a lot of people in the world today. Some people say it's arrogant. Some people say that it's closed-minded. Some people might even say it's violent to believe that Jesus is Lord in any sort of objective sense. But eventually we're all confronted with the Matthew 16 question. In Matthew 16, Jesus asks Peter, he says, "Who do you say that I am?" And I think all of us at some point or another is going to have to answer that question. Who do you say Jesus is? Not just in an internal sort of way, not just about your opinion, not just about your feeling, but in an objective sort of way. Who is Jesus anyway? To the skeptic who sees this truth claim as a stumbling block, I say simply explore the truth of Christianity. Taste and see that the Lord is good. The claims that Jesus makes are not violent, are not arrogant. If a doctor tells you the way to get well, you don't call the doctor arrogant. You thank him. And so Jesus' truth, in the same way, in a much more significant way, is a truth that saves. Now, some believers I know also struggle with this. Maybe you're watching this right now and you think to yourself, I don't know. I mean, I believe that Jesus is Lord. I'm just a little bit hesitant to say, I don't know. I don't know if Jesus is Lord in an objective sort of sense. I believe it subjectively, but I don't know if I'm willing to go here. Let me say this. A lot of times we struggle as believers because we've said that Jesus is Lord. We've identified that Jesus is Lord, but Jesus really hasn't come to occupy the center of our lives. Leslie Newbingen, a Christian theologian, author, he says, "No faith can command a man's final and absolute allegiance. That is to say, no faith can be a man's real religion. If he knows that it is only true for certain places and certain people." I like to illustrate it this way. Imagine that you just moved into a new house, okay? And one of the things that happens when you move into a new house from an old house is you got to figure out where everything goes, right? Where do the linens go? Where does the furniture go? Where does all of our wall art go? Our family pictures and all these other things. Like where are we gonna hang these on the wall? And so whenever you move into a new place, the first several weeks at your new place, you're kind of walking around the house trying to figure out, does this painting go here? Does this family picture go here? You're trying to figure it out. Now imagine that your family inherits the statue of Michelangelo. Literally a priceless piece of art. And it's yours now. Your family owns it now. And so you have this giant sculpture, this giant statue, this giant priceless piece of art. And you have to figure, where am I going to put this in my house? It's too tall for the basement. Can't put it in the basement. It's too important to be in the basement anyway. It's kind of obtrusive in the living room. I don't know, it might get in the way of the TV. Definitely not G-rated. It's not going in the kids' rooms, okay? Where do we put this giant statue of David? Well, if this were to happen in real life, though, you know what would have to happen. What would have to happen is that we would have to buy a new house or build a new house centered on this priceless piece of art. We would have to organize everything else around this statue because it's that significant, because it's that important. You don't fit the statue into your house, you build the house around it. And I think you can probably see where I'm going with this. A lot of us struggle with the nature of faith and truth because honestly, we're just trying to figure out a place where Jesus fits. Well, does he fit here? I don't know. He fits at church for sure. Not sure that he fits at school. Not sure that he fits when I go to work. he fits with this group of friends, but he doesn't fit with this group of friends. And so we kind of struggle because we're kind of walking around our lives trying to figure out a place where Jesus fits. But what Jesus wants to tell us is, when you say that I am Lord, when you say that Jesus is Lord, what you're saying is everything else in my life is now built around this fact. It's not an opinion that you believe, it's a fact of life. And everything else in my life has to be oriented, has to be situated around this truth. Build your life around the truth of Jesus rather than trying to find a place where he fits in.